The City of Bristol, providing beautiful parks, economic development, and a family-friendly community.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the joint meeting of the Board of Finance and City Council. These are items that have already been deliberated by both boards, and we now come together once a month to ratify all of those votes. So please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the members of the joint meeting please introduce themselves, starting on my far left? I tricked you.
This
and
is
you didn't-
left.
But I looked at you because I wanted to see if you were going to pick up on it.
That's why I'm over here waving. Hi, I'm Cheryl Tebow, Board of Finance.
Scott Rosato, City Council.
Dave Mills, City Council.
Dave Perleski, City Council.
Mary Fortier, City Council.
Greg Hahn, City Council.
Peter Kelly, City Council.
Ron Burns, Board of Finance.
John Smith, Board of Finance.
Orlando Kelfi, Board of Finance.
You all know me.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular joint meeting on March 12th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are 5 items on the consent calendar, items A through E. Is there anybody that would like to pull off any items for discussion purposes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar items 2A through E?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is to transfer $17,000 from the general fund contingency account to information technology for the repairs and maintenance for the purchase of seamless docks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. To transfer, item 4 is to transfer $15,000 from the general fund contingency account to the Community Services Department concerning their relocation expenses incurred.
Move approval.
Discussion on the motion?
Yes, could you just describe where they're moving to so people might know?
So this is for the fund that is available for community services when there's code enforcement or other activity. We force landlords to relocate their tenants at their expense. But what we, the city, do per the state law that governs this is to forward those payments to the tenants. There are several factors. They must have an active lease. They had to have been there for, I think, 90 days or more, and it has to be actionable. So what happens is we pay to relocate either to another apartment or to a hotel for short-term stays. A lien is placed on the property owner's property, and at time of sale or at time when he wants to be made whole because he wants a CO or to come back into the building, those liens are paid and the city recoups their money. Relocation occurs throughout the year. There's a standard line item. She has expended her line item, and we are anticipating that there probably will be additional relocations between now and June 30th. So in order to make it, the process flow smoother, we are putting $15,000 into that account.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Was there a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, second?
Yes.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is our monthly revenue and expense report presentation by Diane Waldron.
Good evening. Not too much to report. We've been very busy with budget over the last couple of weeks, and this week just trying to do some last-minute items, which I'll talk about in a minute. Couple things that we have been watching. You know, our tax revenues are coming in strong. Our supplemental motor vehicle tax list, right now we're almost at 0.7 million over what we had anticipated. So this is all good surplus that will help us at the end of the year when we need to transfer money into some of the reserve funds. Our building permit revenue right now is at 102% of budget, which that's also coming in strong. Conveyance tax at 85%. Investment earnings, that is one area that I do anticipate we will exceed over $1 million in our investment earnings. And we budgeted $508,000, so investment earnings are doing well right now. Just one thing, I have been reading and kind of keeping up on the interest rate and to see what's going to happen, and I don't foresee, excuse me, I don't foresee that there will be any future rate hikes in the near future. So I think right now, I think what we're seeing might be more than norm, maybe over for the next year or so. So that being said, though, we will have a nice surplus in our investment earnings account. State revenues, just to give you an update on the ECS payment, we anticipate right now that the ECS payment for this current year will be $200,000 less. There was a prior year, so it would be 2017-18 audit adjustment to excess costs that flows through ECS. This happened last year with the $500,000, if you remember, for those that were here. So right now, we do anticipate that we will have this year's ECS $200,000 short because of that adjustment. To give you an update on the $500,000, there is a meeting later this week with the state to find out the progress of that, because I know we've been working on that to try to get some of that money back. I know the Jill Brown, the business manager, had worked with the state and tried to audit those expenses to try to recoup some of that $500,000 that we did not get last year. So keep our fingers crossed that there will be some money recouped from last year's $500,000 adjustment on the ECS grant. Any questions on any of that? I know we've all been following that, and I've kind of been trying to keep you up to date on that one.
Diane, I have a question. In regards to the $200,000 for this year, is that because it's based on the information that they accepted in the prior year, or is there a new issue?
So what happens is the ECS will be adjusted if there's any audit adjustment from the previous fiscal year. So the $200,000 is for the 17-18 year. The 500 was for the 16-17 year. So that 200,000 is exclusive of that 500. I don't know if that was what you were asking, but what happens is they have to estimate their excess cost reimbursement. So they're estimating that in like April, May, and that's when they're getting that included that's when they're getting their excess cost money in 17-18. So they receive that like in May of 2018. When the audit is complete, they actually look at what was actually spent for excess cost and special ed, and that's where the adjustment comes. So if there's any changes from what they submitted in their estimates to the actual, that's what generates that adjustment.
Okay, so that's not recoverable at all. It's separate. So if you recover part of the $500,000, it doesn't change those estimates?
No, not the 200,000, no. It won't.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Sorry if it was a little long-winded there, Cheryl.
That's quite all right.
On the expenditure side, on the city side, I think we're doing well. There's nothing that has come to our attention that, other than each department is going to fare well at the end of the year. So like I said, you'll probably see some areas that do need some transfers here and there. Some we're holding off until the end of the year, but overall, I anticipate there will be surpluses in some of the accounts. And as I reported in my presentation last week, I know there are some expenditures that some of the departments are asked to see if they can find the money this year to purchase and not include in next year's budget. I do want to say right now the contingency account has about $884,000 remaining, so that's good for now. I know the Board of Education right now, they are anticipating a deficit, but they are not sure yet what that will be. So I know they will be at the April 23rd meeting of the Board of Finance, and they'll be scheduled to present at that meeting and hopefully give us an update. Two other things, the Board of Finance budget workshop, their last workshop is this coming Monday on the 15th at 6. The adoption is on April 23rd by the Board of Finance to the May 20th date. And then one other thing, if anyone's interested, the actuary is coming to the retirement board meeting on May 9th to present the actuarial report for last year. So if anybody's so inclined to want to come listen to her, you're more than welcome to do that. It's the first actuarial evaluation we have with the all of the funds combined under one umbrella, police, fire, and city. So with that, I think that's all I have. Anybody has any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. It's not on our agenda, but it is a regular meeting, so are there any other business items that anybody from the joint meeting would like to bring forward? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The regular city council meeting will start in 5 minutes at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to our monthly city council meeting. We're now moving into the agenda associated with our regular meeting, but we will again ask you to stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the members of the City Council please introduce themselves, starting on my far right?
Peter Kelly.
Greg Hahn?
Mary Fortier, District 3.
Dave Perleski, District 2.
Dave Mills, District 3.
Scott Rosato, District 1.
And I'm Mayor Ellen Zappo-Sasu. Thank you for joining us tonight. The first item on our agenda is our moment of reflection, and since April is our Volunteer Recognition Month, I would just like to have a moment of reflection on the many people who service the many boards and commissions here for the City of Bristol that keep the government running, and thank them for their time and service. Thank you. The second item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular City Council meeting from March 12th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion, clarifications or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For public participation, we have two people here tonight. The first one is Lee McFadden, representing the Daughters of the American Revolution. They are celebrating their 125th anniversary here in Bristol, and it is quite something to know that we have an organization that rooted in genealogy, and she's here wearing all of her important DAR pins, and hopefully she will share with us a little bit about the history of this organization. She is also here with members from DAR sitting in the back as well. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. The National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, is a worldwide service organization dedicated to patriotism, education, and historic preservation. It was founded in 1890 and now has over 185,000 members. In order to join the DAR, an applicant must be able to prove her lineage back to a patriot who fought during the war or supported the cause for liberty in some way. The NSDAR headquarters consists of an entire city block adjacent to the White House in Washington. It is the largest building owned by women in the world. The genealogical library and the museum are open to the public and have amazing historical displays and information. Constitution Hall is often used for important events and concerts. This past weekend, it hosted the Horatio Alger Awards, if you saw those on TV. The Connecticut State Society has over 2,400 members. We own, maintain, and open as museum buildings 3 historic properties in the state: the Oliver Ellsworth Homestead in Windsor, the Governor Jonathan Trumbull House in Lebanon, and the Wadsworth Stable, built by the Wadsworth family in Hartford, but was relocated to Lebanon in the 1950s. Each of these buildings tells a story about some of the builders of our state and country. The Catherine Gaylord chapter here in Bristol was organized in 1894 by Mrs. Florence Muzzy. Catherine Cole Gaylord, our namesake, was born in what is now Burlington in 1745. She married Aaron Gaylord, a New Cambridge boy, around 1763. Aaron was in the local militia during the war, and because of his service, he was promoted to lieutenant. In 1776, the family moved to Pennsylvania, along with other families from New Cambridge. They settled at 44, which is now the area near Wilkes-Barre. In June of 1778, a group of Native Americans and British attacked the fort. This attack is now known as the Wyoming Massacre. Over 200 scalps were taken from the settlers, even those who had surrendered. When Catherine heard that her husband had been killed, she walked back to her father's home with her 3 young children, with the children taking turns on their one horse. Catherine lived the rest of her life in Burlington and lived until age 95. The chapter currently has 39 members. In recent years, we handed out children's books free of charge at the Mum Festival. We collected and sent overseas to our troops many boxes of toiletries and snacks. We contribute gift cards annually to the St. Vincent de Paul for clients to buy needed personal items, and members helped plan and contribute to the Revolutionary Monument on the Boulevard. We maintain relationships with both the Bristol and Burlington Historical Societies and help the cemetery and veteran groups to put flags on graves. We are honored to be part of Bristol's past, present, and future. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you. And we do have a proclamation if you and/or members would like to come forward. And I'm going to deputize Andy or Debbie to take pictures. Our public relations specialist is with Youth Cabinet tonight. So if all of you want to come in, we could all stand and I can just read this last part. Of course, I've always been fascinated by the facet of Catherine Gaylord walking back from Pennsylvania with 3 children because I couldn't even get mine to go to the grocery store with me.
I second that.
The fortitude of that generation. But we are honored to honor one of our longest serving service clubs because that is in essence what you have. Come forward so you can be in the picture. One on this side, Val, over here. Okay. So Lee covered most of what we have, but I just want to say that whereas this chapter has supported local organizations, such as many organizations, including the Women's Transitional Shelter, Prudence Crandall, and the other ones that have been mentioned, that I, Ellen Zappo-Sassu, Mayor of the City of Bristol, and the City Council, do hereby commend and honor the Daughters of the American Revolution on this, their 125th anniversary, for their steadfast dedication to our country and our veterans, past and present. They will be celebrating on Thursday night at Chippeney, and I hope that you will proudly display this proclamation and thank the rest of your members for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more picture. Okay, well, do you want to get in the picture and then we can send it to you?
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. I'm going to lose my bet about what time this meeting ends. Okay, Lee.
An answer.
Okay. Next on public participation is Brian Cohen.
Pass that over, please, Scott.
How you all doing tonight?
Good
My
evening.
name is Brian Cohen. I'm from Chatham, Connecticut. I'm here tonight as part of what we've been doing for the last couple of years regarding what I call patient rights and worker rights and why they sometimes are violated or not adhered to. Over the last month, since I was there last time, I went to Cambridge Park and met with the people that were able to be outside and come talk to me. So now, what I did was I offered a small petition. So people from Bristol now can step up and have a voice for themselves. When people stand up for patient rights, mandated reporting, or any kind of stuff like that, one of the scariest things that person has to go through is what's going to happen to me. What's going to happen to my family? if I stand up and everyone like scatters, and then I'm left alone with my own family, you know, are these rights that important to me? You know, is your kid's well-being that important to me if I'm going to put my own family at risk? For me, that answer was yeah. I just happened to have a mom who had a mental illness. I grew up with it. It just happens to be who I am. So as we come around the turn, I wanted to get people from Bristol involved, and we started to take that next step. The other thing I also talked about was the exhibit I had at the concourse at the state capitol. One of your state legislators came up to me and talked to me about that. All right? Now, I've always been pretty clear about my position. I'm about leadership and the guaranteed rights. Without leadership, you don't have the rights. It's just the way it is. So the state legislator said to me, "What do you want?" And I said, I met with this guy a number of different times, and I said the same thing. You know, if Michael Suchapar lied to the public to get the job, lied to the police to keep the job, then that's not character, it's not leadership, it's an insult to everyone in this town and the state, and that's just the way it is. He went and he spoke to that gentleman, and then he came back to me about a week ago. He said the reason why he's not going to speak up is because, according to him, the situations that happened at St. Francis and Elmcrest where the kid died, and that Lake Grove in Durham, really weren't that big of a deal because the institutions themselves did not do anything. The gentleman answered his own question, something that I've been searching for the last few years doing this video. Why weren't the rights guaranteed? He answered it right then and there. He minimized and chose to walk away. And that leaves people like me in a difficult position of having to come up with another mousetrap to move this. And so I went to Cambridge, and I spoke to those people. And one of the people said to me, this guy said, that I'd love to sign this. I really would. But all my wife and I have is this, living in this project. And that man was afraid that he would jeopardize that and lose that if he put his name on a piece of paper, trying to guarantee the rights that are just basic common sense. Bad things happen at institutions, cities, whatever, all the time. You can have a situation where something goes wrong, but it's just that group. You can't blame the city council, you can't blame the mayor. But then there are situations where something bad is happening, and rumors and whispers do get to the mayor, but then they don't do anything. But the absolute worst is when the brain of the operation, the head of the fish, is exactly the reason why the violations and people are being put at risk. When that is the situation, where the head of that fish is the problem, then those rights have no defenders. Because a person is going to say, I need to keep my job, I'm going to look the other way. I got a mortgage, I'm going to look the other way. So when that state legislator says to me that, hey, it really wasn't that bad because the institution didn't do anything about it, I really don't know what to say to you guys about leadership. I was pretty disappointed in that guy. And I'm hoping over the next month to have a change of heart and maybe come here in June and say to you people in Bristol that, hey, you know what? Upon further review, I think I was lied to when he went and met Michael Suchapar. I was manipulated to somehow be convinced that 2 patient deaths, 2 consent decrees, an 84-page report about abuse, neglect, crony deals. All right? Those things happen. They put people at risk, and they should not be repeated. I'm hoping that that state legislator will come here and say, hey, I think I got lied to. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit to the City Council basically the 3 series of questions that I have begun the process of interacting with people in Bristol. All right. The first one was if Michael Suchbar lied to the public to get the job, lied to the police to keep the job, then that's a moral violation regarding the ethics of the Bristol Boys and Girls Club. Certainly flies in the face of what we should be teaching children, especially at that project in Cambridge Park. The worst thing you could ever do to a child with nothing is teach them to lie to get ahead. Shame on you people. Third one, or the second one, was in the future. When Gary Shafrick was busted in March of 2016 for allegedly getting all naked with a boy, a child that he allegedly was caring for. Right? In June of 2016, he was allowed to become the vice chairperson of the Bristol Housing Authority. The same little group of people that were afraid to open their mouth. I personally find that insulting that you would ever do that. And so do those people. So in the future, if a person is charged with risk of injuring a child and has a connection to a taxpayer-funded institution that promotes itself with your young, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club, Girls Clubs, teaching, whatever, it doesn't matter. That person should be suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. To me, that's no big of a deal. If you're cleared, you come back. If you're busted, you did the right thing because you should always err on the side of the child. And when this, I don't want to say this board, but when people who lead this city chose to say, hey, I got a kid who's 5 years old, who's probably scared, wondering what's going on, and then we're going to see, geez, now, here's the dude. We're going to make him the vice chair of the Housing Authority. How do you like that, kid? How do you like that? And those people I talked to, they were livid. They live in the dark with mushrooms.
Is that coming to me?
Yep, and I'm going to bring it right now. Okay. The last one, there was a series of pictures on the Bristol Housing Facebook page. There's a few of them. When you look at them, they just don't seem to fit that page. There's something called child erotica, which can be basically considered through the FBI candidates, pictures of children engaged in certain activities. Not illegal, of course, but still, they're on the edge. They provide some kind of, I don't know, energy to those who like to lurk on their kids. I would like you guys to review those pictures on the Bristol Housing Authority Facebook page and remove them. If you don't remove them, then have an explanation why these pictures, I mean, they're on there, you could look them up, don't quite fit. And they should be removed. Now, those are the items that I spoke to with the people at Cambridge. And that's basically it.
So, just to clarify, we don't have anything to do with.
I just want to show, here's the people I've signed so far.
Okay.
I just want to hold the names now.
Yep, that's fine. But we don't have anything to do with the hiring processes or the retention processes at the Boys and Girls Club. The unfortunate situation that occurred in the former administration with the appointment process was not one that we're involved with. And the staff of the Bristol Housing Authority also has no input into that as well. And in terms of the Facebook page, we will definitely take a look at that.
Thank you. I do want to say this. Like I said at the beginning, you can't blame the mayor or the city council when they step into a situation. All they can do is show leadership. And that is definitely something that this council has done. I don't agree with everyone on this board, but I don't hold that against anybody here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody that is here in the audience that missed the sign-up sheet that would like to address the city council? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to employee recognition. And tonight, we are just going to spend a minute focusing on our Public Works Department. We have a lot of new staff that have come in that have really taken over some of these exciting programs that you're seeing publicized. And some of them we've just put together in a slideshow for those of you who may not have seen in the newspaper or have social media accounts. But I'd like to recognize Ray Rogozinski, who is here, our new Public Works Director, and Lindsay Rivers, who's our Public Works Analyst, who has been here for a year. But this is kind of the status of what we're doing. Many of these workshops, like the Rain Garden Workshop, and we had an invasive species. We're doing the sports equipment collection, where just tons of equipment have been coming into City Hall and repurposed. The fight on illegal bulk continues, and we've had many situations there. We have partnerships with both the Parks Department and the schools. So on Earth Day, we'll be at Southside. The crews are going out and handling the illegal dumping that's happening. And we're also really pushing the repurposing theme, because as much as we can keep out of the transfer station and pay those tipping fees, that is money back to the taxpayers. The big one that's happening this week, though, all of those pallets are being broken down and rebuilt into birdhouses, which are going to be a workshop and placed all throughout the Parks Department within the next couple of months. So the employee recognition for this month goes to the Public Works Department, and just because I don't want him to feel left out, the Parks Department, he can get a little bit too. But I'd like to thank you for all the new energy, the new enthusiasm, and so many of the ideas that are coming forth. And with that being said, I would like to ask for an indulgence from the City Council to move one appointment up to the top of the agenda.
I move that.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So tonight, it is also my pleasure to appoint Nancy Levesque, our existing Assistant City Engineer, to the position of City Engineer for a 4-year term to April of 2023. Nancy, why don't you stand up and say hello to everybody? Okay.
Need a second?
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Nancy's been with us a little over a year and has performed just really well in the department, and I think that there's been many projects that I could speak of just in the 18 months that I've been involved, but I will say that the involvement that she's had across the street with the Rendina and the Bristol Hospital project has really kept it on track. So thank you for that. As if there's no other comments, I will call for a vote for a 4-year appointment for Nancy Levesque. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Nancy. You're a great addition to our Public Works team. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, there are several items on it tonight. They actually number 5A through L. And I'd like to ask the members of the City Council if any of those items as presented is anything that they'd like to talk about in more detail, and if so, we can pull it off the consent agenda before the vote.
I have items up to N.
I only have L. I have L. Is there a revision? There was?
M and N.
Late
yes.
items on Friday?
Oh, I printed an old agenda. Thank you, Dale. All right, so we have agendas A through N. Wow. Is there any of these items that anybody would like to pull off? All right, hearing none, the motion would be to approve the consent calendar, 5A through 5N as presented.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You can have your agenda back, Dale. I think that's the only change I've seen. Moving on to reports and committee reports, we'll start with the Real Estate Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. This next motion is a recommendation from the Real Estate Committee I hereby move that the City of Bristol authorize the Bristol Farmers Market use of the city-owned property known as Center Square every Saturday running from June 22nd through October 26th and November 23rd, 2019. This authorization is subject to the Director of Public Works determination of the location on the property that is to be utilized by the Bristol Farmers Market. And I further move that the matter be referred to Corporation Counsel's Office for insurance compliance. And I further move that the mayor or acting mayor be authorized to execute any necessary documents to effectuate the same.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion for the farmer's market? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. These also are recommendations from our Ordinance Committee. I hereby move that Section 21-49 requirements for commercial and industrial property of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Bristol is hereby amended to read as presented. I further move that the city clerk publish said amendments and additions to the Code of Ordinances, and they become effective upon the expiration of 14 days from the date of their publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the City of Bristol. And Your Honor, this amendment to the ordinance really changes the responsibility for granting sidewalk waivers to the Planning and Zoning Commission and versus the City Council.
Yes.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Anyone bemoaning the loss of your sidewalk approval authority?
Not at all.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Your Honor, again from the Ordinance Committee, I hereby move that Section 2-97.76 Retiree Healthcare Trust Establishment, Trust Management, Asset Investment of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bristol is hereby amended to read as presented. I further move that the city clerk publish said amendments and additions to the Code of Ordinances, and they become effective upon expiration of 14 days from their date of their publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the City of Bristol. And Your Honor, what this does is add an additional trustee to the trust. The comptroller will serve as well as the city treasurer.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Your Honor, one last one, please.
Yes.
Again, from our Ordinance Committee. It's an ordinance excuse me. I hereby move that the time and place of Wednesday, April 17th, 2019 at 4:45 p.m. in the first floor meeting room, City Hall, 111 North Main Street, Bristol, Connecticut, be set for the holding of a public hearing thereon by the Ordinance Committee, and that the city clerk publish notice of said public hearing and the proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinance required by the city charter. This public hearing deals in a new ordinance to be presented regarding massage parlor regulations. And if I can just bring the councils up to speed, a few months ago, the city was given a complaint by a commercial landlord on Route 6 about some activity that was suspicious, let's say. And our building officials, our police department, and others investigated. And Attorney Conlon, who has some experience as a lawyer in drafting these...
That's not what I thought you were going to say.
I thought that one out. I want you to know that. Yeah, and the director of the Bristol Burlington Health District, Marco Palmieri, we've met. This is endorsed by our health district, and it really is about public safety. It's about public safety and the regulation of services which involve direct contact and therefore a potential for all sorts of health issues. This ordinance requires that establishments be licensed by the Bristol Burlington Health District, and there are a set of sanitary operation procedures in place. Thank you, Your Honor.
Second.
There's a second. Is there further discussion on the proposed ordinance for massage establishments?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time in ordinance discussing this. Attorney Conlon did a great job in researching several communities to give us some ideas and came up with a very good plan, something that the health department endorsed, and I think we should get behind it and pass it.
Thank you. Any other conversation? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is from the Salary Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 2 items tonight from salary. The first, item 6E, is to approve a reorganization of the Parks and Recreation Department as presented, effective immediately pending budget considerations, and to refer to the Board of Finance for funding and informational purposes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. For the highlight of this is the consolidation of several part-time positions, the elimination of a full-time position in the maintenance division, and creation of additional positions. And I believe that the net financial add to the park department budget is less than $60,000 when all of that consolidation is done. So that's what will be going to via the budget process as well as the Board of Finance. And it's part of the Parks Department strategic planning process that they started under the former director, that the current director is continuing and bringing forward.
If I may, Your Honor, just a brief comment as well. Again, this is a department that takes on there's a lot of action during the year, and especially in the summertime, and I think that these new positions will assist in making that much more efficient. And we expect an awful lot from our Recreation Department, and I think this will put people in position to be able to do those much more effectively.
That is the goal. Any further comments concerning the reorganization? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The second item from salary tonight is item 6F, to approve changes to salaries of full-time and part-time non-bargaining employees as presented, effective July 1st, 2019, and to refer to the Board of Finance for informational purposes.
This is something that's done annually, so now we're just ahead of the curve as opposed to the retro one that we had to do
A couple months
in the middle
ago.
of the winter. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the salary schedule for the non-bargaining employees. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item for reports and committees is the Memorial Boulevard School Building Committee update. Anything?
Thank you, Your Honor. The committee last met on March 28th, and we reviewed the updates from the architects, the project managers, and the construction manager. They're reviewing floor plan design drafts and space allocation, and that the design team with the architect and the construction manager have meetings that are ongoing. There's also a review of hazmat issues and forensics, and that report should be completed fairly soon. The next meeting is scheduled for this Thursday at 6:30 at the Board of Education, room 36. The public is invited. Thank you.
Thanks. The next update is from the Mayor's Task Force on Opioid Use Prevention, and we've had a lot happen in this past month. Right before this meeting, Chief Gould and I were at Bristol Hospital. They actually hosted a grand rounds for their medical staff, and we actually had members of our task force there as well, talking about the prescription monitoring program and how the physicians should be using that so that everybody has access to those records in terms of the potential of doctor shopping as well as patient health to ensure that there isn't prescription abuse. We also had Marco Palmieri, who is actually our recovery champion, which is part of a process that we put in place to destigmatize people who are in recovery. He presented, as well as Courtney Pope, who is one of the clinical supervisors at Wheeler Clinic. So focusing on new resources and really educating the medical staff about the prescription abuse problems and encouraging their cooperation. We were on the consent calendar tonight for a mini grant through the Connecticut State Opioid Response Initiative, so that is in play. We're going to continue to do lots of community outreach on that. We do have tonight the item that I spoke of last month that I will just pass out again for those that remember. We are interested in participating with the state initiative to be a recovery-friendly community, again, with the thought that to destigmatize what families are going through. This is the checklist that the opioid task force recommended last month for your review. For your viewing pleasure, I have filled it out in terms of the milestones as to where we are. What this is tonight is simply to talk about where we are in terms of meeting benchmarks. And for the public's edification that's with us tonight, as well as watching at home, the categories that we have to meet are municipal leadership, municipal department buy-in, community attitudes, and community resources. This is promulgated by the Connecticut Alcohol and Drug Policy Council and the Recovery Health Management Subcommittee, and many communities are being asked to do this. It's important for us to do it from a grant perspective as well as from a recovery partnership. So the items that we have checked as yes items are there. I did use the next steps column to kind of just write notes in terms of where we are. And I think the only ones that we're waiting for is to add to our website. And I think that's it. The chamber is working with us. The hospital is working with us, and we have many community organizations as well. So most of the information that is needed in the community is available in our brochures that I talked about last month that are available throughout the community. And actually, this is the one that's with the police department. The You Have Survived an Opioid Overdose that is being used for the first responders and the med bags. The other one that is we're using at community fairs, which is the opioid community crisis and what can we do now. This is actually headed to its first reprint after only being in circulation for 2 months. So there's definitely people who are interested in educating themselves and learning about what's happening. So at this point, I would just be looking for the council for a vote to endorse Bristol as a recovery-friendly community.
I move that Bristol consider itself and move forward and name itself as a recovery-friendly community.
Is there a second? Okay. Is there further discussion or comments from the council?
Any negative ramifications of that?
Really, just as we continue to dispel some of the stigmas associated with what families are doing, I think that would really be the only one. There's stigmas attached to hiring. There's stigmas attached to breaking the cycle, staying in recovery, and really the pressures that puts on people from an economic standpoint, family relationships, reunification issues, really setting ourselves up to be in a position to offer assistance with no financial input at this point other than collaborating and bringing those resources to the table, really hopefully will be the first step for job security, people getting back in the workforce, breaking the cycle, using less social services, having less police calls. It's really all part of a healthy community attitude.
Does it make our community more attractive to?
It does to some people, and the one thing that we have a constant criticism of, which is the location of sober and recovery houses, that actually is wending its way through the legislation because they're not governed and they're not regulated. So now there's some transparency legislation that we're supporting that talks about them having to be regulated by certain departments, whether it's DEMAS, Department of Public Health, or others. And I think that that's going to add to a better conversation. Instead of neighborhoods being scared about something, they're going to be able to access information and see what's happening. So that would really, to answer your question off the top of my head, be the only thing that I could think of that continues to be a little bit of a problem for us, perception-wise.
And Dave, to that point, something that was said at the opioid task force, many of the professionals that are providers of service in this area, when they looked at this list, this checklist of things that a community has to do to be considered a recovery-friendly community, they basically said Bristol has been a recovery-friendly community for many years, and that the people who work in this field have seen it that way and know that. And so this is really sort of acknowledging that we've had a lot of services for addiction here for many, many years. And this is really just recognizing all the work that those agencies and organizations have done.
Thank you for the information. I just didn't want it to be something where, again, the perception is that you're attracting people that you don't want to attract.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know, and that's a real fear, but the fact of the matter is that the demographic that's perceived to be associated with a lot of this is not actually the demographic that's associated with it. One of the slides tonight that was at the Bristol Hospital Grand Rounds showed that the majority of people, Bristol-specific as well as statewide, that are dying from opioid crisis-related situations are white men between the ages of 35 and 64. That's an interesting statistic, I think. All right, so any further conversation, comments, questions?
I'd like to have a question about Memorial Boulevard School for Councilman Proleski, if I may.
Can we finish the vote on this first? Sure. Okay. Anything else anybody would like to talk about for the recovery-friendly community? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we're going to go back up to item 6G for a question concerning Memorial Boulevard.
Dave, I understand Memorial Boulevard's going to open up in 2021, and it came up at one of the Arts and Culture Commission meetings that we're trying to organize events and things to bring people down to downtown for the businesses. Is there a plan, or can there be a plan to open up the theater prior to the opening of the actual opening of the school?
Well, there's been some discussion about that, and it certainly is a significant part of the redevelopment, repurposing of the building. I'm not sure that there's a plan in place yet to open the theater beforehand, but I understand your concerns, and let me come back to you with some more detail. But it's still early in the project.
Yeah, great, thank you.
If I may just add to that. One thing that we had talked about was there's several people in Bristol that have never seen Memorial Boulevard School. If insurance would allow it, I think it would be a good idea to have a tour now, and when I say now, prior to construction, so that people have an idea of what the school is about and what we're trying to accomplish. I know that a lot of people in the northeast section of school that never, not northeast section of town that never went to school there, have no clue what it looks like. So I think that would be a great, idea to put people, or give people the opportunity to go through the school and see what's available right now.
Before and after thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll bring it to the committee.
Thank you.
Yep.
Once they have their schematics and conceptuals done, typically there is some type of public walkthrough or discussion about what those schematics look like. So it might be good to do it there.
Good idea.
Okay, so you'll take that to the committee?
I will.
Okay. Before we move on, are there any other committee reports from committee members? We'll start with Councilman Kelly.
Yes, Your Honor, I have some news regarding the fact that the city was recently notified that the project to realign Memorial Boulevard Down Street, Riverside Avenue, and Blakesley Street intersection is moving forward. The DOT is in the beginning phase of coordinating with the Bristol design of Memorial Boulevard and the Down Street Bridge. And this is actually the original plan. Locally, we've been lobbying for this to happen for a while. We're pleasantly surprised to see that it is going to happen. And it's been authorized pending funding authorization. So with this being approved, we can now move forward with the Riverside Avenue major facelift without fear that the state is then going to come in at a later date with a realignment project that will not mesh with that. So I'm hopeful that this will mean that the state would move forward with the project that I just mentioned and coordinate it in conjunction with the project in the West End, which involves the realignment of Route 72 and 69. And for those of you keeping score at home, that's project number 17-187. And we're excited about this and thankful the state is moving forward and is going to coordinate, hopefully, both projects. And they appear to be doing it in a thoughtful manner, which is going to benefit the entire city.
Yep, it's good news, so we'll be watching that funding authorization. Any questions about the Public Works item committee report? Okay, anything else?
Well, I don't know if I should bring this up now. Technically not a committee report.
How long is it?
It's very short. I'm just going to read it briefly. It didn't make the agenda, but it's, I guess, a requested action, and it's to approve submission of an
Oh,
application.
no,
for
that's new
funds.
business.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
New business. Okay. That's it? Wait, I really want to check, that's it?
That's it?
Councilman Hunt? Okay, no committee reports?
The only brief one I have is one of our announcements that's up on our screen, and that's that the Pine Lake Committee is doing their annual fishing derby on May 11th in the morning. That's for kids of all ages. There's lots of age groups and lots of prizes. We get lots of donations for this, so it's a fun activity for kids. Thank you.
Councilman Pulaski.
Yeah, Your Honor, I just want to bring one more thing up, if I may. St. Stanislaus Church on West Street is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2019. There are a series of events throughout the year, but I want to acknowledge their service to the community and to the Catholic faithful in our community, but also to also announce that on April 28th, there'll be a special mass of celebration for their 100 years, celebrated by the Archbishop of the Diocese of Hartford. It's at 11:15. If you are interested in any of the events or that mass, the website for St. Stans is ststanislausofbristolct.org, or and there'll be announcements in the local papers. Thank you.
Councilman Mills.
Nothing.
Councilman Rosado, any committee reports, not the police one?
No.
Okay. We're going to move on to unfinished business. I just have one quick item. We are continuing to monitor state legislation. The latest one that was brought to our attention by our assessor is an act, raised Bill 1120, an act concerning the mill rate for real property and motor vehicles owned by certain utility companies and establishing a property tax exemption for certain items warehoused in the state by such companies. And the goal here would be to establish a uniform mill rate of only 15 mills for real property and motor vehicles owned by utility companies, and to provide a property tax exemption for all of their items warehoused. So this, in the city of Bristol itself, there are I can't even read. Eversource is our number 2 taxpayer, Yankee Gas is number 9, and they are currently responsible for about $3 million of our grand list. So we lodged opposition testimony this morning, and we will be monitoring that. Obviously, we spend a lot of time on the budget items, and we're watching some of the opioid prevention legislation, and we're also watching some items out of the Banks Committee in terms of how to better handle foreclosed upon property or property in foreclosure. So that will be very helpful to code enforcement. So additionally, for the month of April, we have kind of a star-studded list coming into town on next Monday. We have our Census Count Committee kickoff, and the Lieutenant Governor, Susan Bysowitz, will be here at 10 o'clock to kick that off. All of you are invited. Anybody that can come, it would be good to be here for that. We have Mayor Merchant and I hosted a veteran ceremony, and Councilman Rosado was able to come last week with the Veterans Commissioner. Sadi was in town, and we have the Early Childhood Education Commissioner, Beth Bai, who's scheduling a visit to come to the Bristol Pre-K at the former Jennings School because she's heard so much about that program. We're waiting to hear on that date. And we have invited Commissioner Lehman, who is the new DECD Commissioner, to come to town and tour some of our projects and learn about what we're doing here in Bristol as part of his listening tour, and he will be here at the end of the month. So we are hopefully going to have the attention of the new administration, and hopefully that will benefit Bristol. And for those of you who have interest, Governor Lamont is coming to a Central Connecticut Chamber of Commerce breakfast on May 13th. So if anybody's interested in attending that, let me know, and we can have some representation at that as well. That'll be on the tail end of the legislature doing their budget, so I think it would be good to have a lot of people in the audience talking about that. In terms of the Bristol Hospital update, there's lots going on. The building looks great, but I just wanted to let everybody know that they are scheduling their opening for mid-June. They're going to pair it with a community open house, and they really like the idea of pairing that with our first farmers market, weather permitting. So keep your ear to the ground for more on that. And then charter revision. I know some of you have been attending the meetings, but just officially to put it on the record that the treasurer, TJ Barnes, and I have submitted testimony to the charter revision asking for them to consider moving the position of city treasurer back to an appointed position. And we are also working on a series of changes to the police chapter to have it reflect more how the current practices are and best practices based on our post-accreditation, which is very different from when this charter was written 50 years ago. I'm sure there'll be more things that will pop up, and we will have that charter report by June, I think. And then the last item that I asked to be put on, just to close the loop, as all of you know up here, because we've spent hours doing it, the due diligence option for 10 Main Street. We've spent a lot of time with our staff, a lot of time looking at some of our options, and a lot of time at the financial data. So I thought it was only appropriate to put on the agenda for tonight that we've pretty much closed the loop on the 10 Main Street discussion for right now, and we are not going to be moving forward. We're just going to suspend that because we do have some additional options that might be popping up. And so at this point, this will be the last time it appears on the agenda unless we circle back to it in the following months. But right now, there's no action that needs to be taken. The due diligence process, I think, was very helpful for all of us as we considered a project like that. And I think that those lessons learned can carry us forward as we evaluate other projects. But for right now, I think from a fiscal standpoint, I'm not comfortable with it. And I think that we need to sit back and concentrate our energies on downtown and Memorial Boulevard and some others, knowing full well that if that building is still available to us, when we've exhausted other options, we can circle back as well. Is there any questions or concerns? Okay. Does anybody on the council dais have any unfinished business they'd like to bring forward? All right. Moving forward, we're going to go to agenda item 8, which is new business. And before we handle A and B, I would like to bring to everyone's attention that we have 3 items that we need to bring onto the agenda, none of which were submitted in time to make the actual agenda. So these are going to require votes to come onto the agenda. The first one is a funding request in order to continue Dial-A-Ride from the Department of Aging. So is there a motion to bring that onto the table?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Councilman Fortier, do you have a motion for us?
Yes. I have a lot of information here. I want everyone to know that the Dial-A-Ride program that we're familiar with actually comes from the Elderly and Disabled Demand Responsive Transportation Program. So you can see why we call it Dial-A-Ride. In any case, Dial-A-Ride does provide senior citizens and disabled residents transportation service using wheelchair-accessible vehicles, and they use these services to attend local medical appointments, shopping trips, outings to the Bristol Senior Center, and other personal appointments. The City of Bristol is applying this year for its full share of those funds in the amount of $57,275. A matching grant is required by the city, and there's already a line item in the Department of Aging budget for $70,160. So the motion would be to approve submission of a grant application to the Demand Responsive Program under the auspices of the Naugatuck Valley COG to authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents associated with the application/grant and to refer the matter to the Board of Finance for any necessary action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Thank you all for your courtesy. I would really like to be able to oblige and get that grant in. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The second new item that needs to come to the agenda involves a distracted driving grant that the police department is applying for. And again, the timelines are not meeting our needs in terms of police board, council, and everything else. So it didn't make the agenda, but I'd like to ask a motion to bring the police department's application for a distracted driving grant onto the table for consideration tonight.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion to bring this new item onto the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So again, this is a grant for distracted driving enforcement, which, as we all know, it's an epidemic of its own sort. And I believe Councilman Rosado has a motion for us to entertain.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 Distracted Driving High Visibility Enforcement Grant through the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation Highway Safety. This grant will provide funding of $29,800 for overtime expenses that are accrued through this program. This grant is funded 100%.
Second.
Any discussion on the distracted driving grant? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the last one is another grant application, so kudos to all our departments who are being very assertive with this process, to the State Historic Preservation Office. For any of you who frequent the Bristol Public Library, you'll see that our reading room from the historic side of the building has had some plaster peel away from both the wall and the ceiling. There are matching funds available from the state, and we have been very successful with SHPO applications in the past. So we have a grant that we need to bring onto the table tonight in order for the library to apply for that grant and make this cycle. So is there a motion to bring this onto the agenda tonight?
Move it.
Second.
Discussion of the motion to bring onto the table? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Kelly, do you have a motion for us?
Yes, I do have a motion, Your Honor, to approve submission of an application for funds to the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office for a Historic Restoration Fund grant, to authorize the mayor or acting mayor to execute any and all documents associated with the application/grant, and to refer the matter to the Board of Finance for any necessary action.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I do believe the city clerk has copies of the library and dial-a-ride, but not police. So Councilman Rosato, if you can just pass your motion to her so it can be recorded appropriately. So new business, item A, update on shared services. Oh, Burlington. So I just wanted to update the council. This month's focus will be on our relationship with the town of Burlington. Many of you know that we applied for the open space grant with them. They were a partner with that. And we are, from that process, we realized that we have a brook that goes between Burlington into Bristol and then goes into the Coppermine Brook. And it is named the Negro Hill Brook. So we are jointly making application to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names through the Office of the U.S. Geological Survey to change the name of that brook to Pigeon Hill Brook to better reflect the area as well as to remove a culturally insensitive name. So tonight, the Town of Burlington Board of Selectmen is meeting, as are we, and we are both going to entertain that our councils endorse this motive. And there is some history that I think I forwarded to the council members. So it actually originates near the Pigeon Hill that is part of that open space grant. And so they believe that that would be an appropriate name that would have a chance of being accepted. For those of you who don't know, this stream originates near Gilbert Lane in Burlington and flows southeast into Bristol. It comes along the back of Seymour Park, passing Pigeon Hill until its confluence with the Coppermine Brook. So the renaming of this effort, of this body of water, aligns with our efforts to remove insensitive names. And I think that I would just be looking for a motion to endorse this letter from us to the U.S. Board of Geographic Names. We also have letters on file from our Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments as well as Burlington's Council of Governments, which is different than ours. They're in the Torrington District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the request to rename Negro Hill Brook to Pigeon Hill Brook. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then our second item that we've been working on with Burlington is one of those interesting issues where they purchase water from the city of Bristol through 2 large meters that are on the town line. But the interesting part about that is that they then, through those meters, send water to the 25 homes that have small residential meters within those homes. And these meters are very, very old and very difficult to read. So we then bill Burlington for the consumption that goes through the large meters. They then have to bill the homeowners for the consumption that they can glean off of those meters. So it's approximately 25 customers at this point. So the interesting thing is when there's a leak of water or water quality issues, Burlington handles it, but they admit they don't really have the equipment or expertise to do so, and they are not interested at any point in adding additional customers. So our proposal is to take over the ownership of all those customers, the water mains, the fire hydrants, and any other waterworks that are in the area. And that will remove the large meters at the town line, and then we will do replacements of up-to-date meters in those 25 homes. So that's going to eliminate a $50,000 expenditure for every time that we have to improve upon those large meters. And then the efficiency is that we'll have radio read transmitters, and that those bills will be read that way. So the large meters are actually inaccurate, according to Rob Longo as well. So the savings and efficiencies that he's calculated this morning when we talked about this issue is that Bristol will save $50,000. It's actually estimated every 10 years for not having to replace the large meters. We'll be able to repair any leaks on the mains in a timely and correct fashion, and we will then direct bill each customer with a meter charge of $25 per quarter, and versus what we currently bill Burlington of $300. So there's an increase in revenue for us as well as the efficiency. Meanwhile, for Selectman Schaefer is very happy that he's not going to any longer have the challenging issue of reading the bills and doing the collections. So they're scheduling a final meeting to work out some of the details that will come over to the Corporation Counsel's office, and in general just be one of those efficiencies that you don't know about until you start talking. So I just wanted to apprise the board that we're continuing to have these regional conversations, because especially with the tenor at the state, you really don't know what's coming down, and I prefer to build relationships and have regional cooperation where it works for us, as opposed to Hartford coming and telling us, this is what I think you need to do. So these conversations are going to continue. I've already talked about the census count committee, so absolutely, anybody that can come, I'd like to have you there. And my last new business item is actually the conclusion of a business item, and tonight we had our last youth cabinet for the year. It was at the fire department, and just on signal as it was ending, Tower 1 and Engine 1 raced out to a call with sirens blaring, so that was exciting. And tonight, following Youth Cabinet, we actually had a new member join us for the council meeting, so I'd just like to recognize Maha, who's sitting in the back, Bristol Central, who is here observing our meeting as well. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the Youth Cabinet. New business starting on my far right. Councilman Hahn, don't you have something? I think you do have something
Well,
you'd
I
like.
do have one thing.
Okay.
If you insist.
Didn't know if this was the time. But Bristol Brass and Wind Ensemble had their Pops concert this weekend, and part of the, it was a great event, and part of the fundraising is we don't charge for our tickets. People can come for free, and there's a free will offering. But what we did this year was we created a CD of past concerts, and we that was part of our fundraising, so people could donate what they would, and they would get a CD. So it wasn't really a price, it was a donation. And Mayor, you had requested one,
Yep.
and that will be $10.
Yeah. And let's hope my mother's not watching this on TV, because that's her Mother's Day present.
You need to sign that.
I'll sign it.
Councilman Fortier, new business?
None, thank you.
New business on my left.
No, thank you.
Done, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Moving on to resignations.
There are two resignations. The first is from Dennis Sirianni from the City Energy Commission, and the second is from Sean Dunn from the Board of Public Works.
Okay. Motion to accept, place on file, and send a letter of thanks.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to appointments. We have the Commission on Aging to appoint Sheila Herons to replace Teresa Barton, unexpired term to March of 19, which means
Those are three-year terms, 22.
to 22.
Move it.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Arts and Culture Commission to reappoint Kim Valente, three-year term to April of 2022.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commission for Persons with Disabilities to appoint Gloria Ewings to replace Heather Woodbury, a Section 2-9 resignation for an unexpired term to June of 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Energy Commission to appoint Jennifer Arasimowitz for a term of 3 years to January of 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our municipal agent for the elderly, it is a reappointment of Patricia Tomasak, 2-year term, April 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For Board of Police Commissioners, to reappoint Eric Schwab, Section 2-9 resignation, a 3-year term to December of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Public Works, to appoint Michael Dumas to replace Sean Dunn, resigned, term to February of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Youth Commission, to reappoint Allison Wadowski, Section 2-9 resignation, to February 20th, from February 20th, as our citizen representative for an unexpired term to June of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Zoning Board of Appeals, to reappoint Gerald Raffanello, 3-year term to July of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the last one, to appoint Cecilia Garay. Peter, do you know how to pronounce her last name? Garay?
I don't, I'm
To
sorry.
the School Readiness Council, representing the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So as of this appointment process, we are still looking for people to serve on the City Energy Commission, where we have 1 vacancy, the Housing Code Appeals Board, where we have 1 vacancy, and we are looking for a youth member to serve on the Youth Commission for someone who is under 21 years of age. That would be an unexpired term to March of 2021. So if anybody's interested or knows of anybody, please let me know. Thank you. I will now turn the agenda over to our town and city clerk.
Resolution regarding approval to submit application for Connecticut Office of Early Childhood School Readiness Grant for Priority School Readiness Municipalities Grant and authorization for mayor or acting mayor to execute. There is a resolution to read.
I have it.
Councilman Kelly.
Be it hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Bristol, Connecticut, that the mayor, Ellen Zoppo Sasso, or acting mayor, is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents relating to the application funding grant for the School Readiness Grant Program. Application for Priority School Readiness Municipalities from the Office of Early Childhood for the period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, including but not limited to any amendments to said application and any final funding grant documents and any and all agreements and any amendments thereto with local service providers to implement grant.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, this is a resolution, so we will have a roll call vote, starting with Councilman Kelly.
Yes.
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 And chair votes yes. Motion passes.
And the last item is the executive session to discuss the matter of Jay Kolakowski versus City of Bristol, WCC 60108, 1369.
Okay. Attorney Clift, who will be joining us in executive session.
Attorney Lacey, Attorney Stieg, and myself.
Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This will be a very brief executive session, so we'll be rejoining you shortly. Motion to come out of executive session,
Move it.
which would have been 5 minutes shorter if
Second.
not for Attorney Steig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any motions or any activity to come out from executive session?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.